Welcome back to Vex Comics, and I think this is episode 61 for this kind of main group of episodes, and it's technically season 6, which is crazy, but that does, in this season, I break up the seasons a little different than I probably normally would. But in this season, we're covering kind of the modern era of characters and times. Like the past 2 episodes, I kind of was just bringing you up to speed, and now we're kind of exploring from the comics from the 2020s and onward from now on. So with that, we've finally reached the dark multiverse, which is great because I can't seem to stop myself from explaining the origins of it with every episode that involves it. Because the concept of it is so unique and new, and because we're talking about it, this episode is no different, so I'm going to be covering it again. Mostly because I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And it fits perfectly into the timeline I've made with the previous 2 episodes. Wow, who would have thought? Who would have knew that would have happened when you plan? Anywho. So last time we checked in on all of our guys, and a lot of stuff was going on. We explored some of the fallout and new cosmic introductions after the events of Doomsday Clock and all that good stuff. So to give you a quick refresh, we have Earth Zero, the main deal, canon Justice League. It's where all the stuff happens in the comics. Since you can't only have one, you can't only have positive matter, you also have a shadow reflection, the antimatter universe. And then, separate from that, you have the dark matter, or dark multiverse, that kind of acts as the trash can. Which is what we're here to talk about today. Great. So to give a general idea, and a summary of the dark multiverse, so just so we can all picture it together. It's a big, chaotic, unstable realm called the Sea of Possibilities. It's formed out of the fears and negative emotions of the beings in the positive matter multiverse. And it houses all of the unstable Earths not fit for the positive matter multiverse. And unlike the positive matter multiverse, the Earths in the dark multiverse were really unstable and constantly being created and destroyed, just like nightmare realities usually created from a single wrong major decision, like Batman killing the Joker and then becoming the Batman who laughs kind of deal. Granted, these worlds weren't intentionally made this way, which is where we introduce Alpheus, the World Forger, who's created to forge worlds. Pretty straightforward. And his whole goal was to make stable universes. He would take Earth Zero as a template, change a little thing here and there, and let it run its course to see the outcome. If his change worked out, then he'd send it up to the positive matter multiverse, and if it failed, unstable nuclear war, everyone dies, major catastrophe, black holes destroy all life, etc., he'd toss it in the trash or dark multiverse. Still pretty straightforward. Normal stable worlds go up, unstable disaster worlds go down. Thrown away and used again. And so, because Alpheus, the World Forger, was doing this, and he would send the worlds down that would get destroyed, and he needed something to actually destroy the energy in the world, So he created a little helper guy that acted as a garbage disposal, and who was strong enough to destroy these new universes that were sent his way. And this little guy's name is Barbatos, the title of the thing. The guy we're talking about. Personally, I think he went a bit overboard on Barbados's creation. Could have just made a simple recycler guy, just guy that destroys the things and turns into energy, and then the energy goes back. Pretty simple. But instead of just making a simple recycler system, he created the cosmic bat god, great monstrous dragon of the dark multiverse, devourer of dying realities, and architect of cosmic nightmares. Bro, the garbage disposal doesn't need flame stickers. You're doing too much. But maybe he just wanted to make the disappointing part of his job a bit more fun. You can just bury a dead mouse or feed it to your snake. But this is where we get kind of a bit in the weeds of it. So the main dude in the dark multiverse is Barbatos, and he would feed on the negative energy from these dying worlds, and then he'd release the energy, returning it back to Alpheus so he could use it to make another world. So there's no waste of energy. Even though he had plenty of energy, because if a world ended up being good, it wouldn't get recycled, but it was still good to not waste it. You don't want to let the energy just float around the dark multiverse for no reason. So it would just go back into his pot of energy that was just never ending, I guess. So it's kind of dual purpose. Alpheus didn't exactly recognize that the cosmic energy had returned, but he'd see that the failed universes would be cleaned up and gotten rid of. And that's really what he cared about. Which leads us to the crucial flaw of the World Forge. You might remember a little number we used in the previous episodes, 52. Well, the judges of the source were given strict orders to make no more than 52 universes around the time of the 52. Coincidence. At least 52 positive matter universes. But that didn't stop the World Forger, because his whole job was endless creation. So even if he did make a stable universe, it would ultimately fall back into the dark multiverse because the positive matter multiverse was at capacity. Which essentially created a buffet for Barbatos, because suddenly every newly created universe was set to be recycled. And occasionally he would consume more than one universe before returning the negative energy back to Alpheus. And to Barbatos, being this devourer god of despair, this negative energy was kind of like a powerful drug, where in tiny doses of one universe, then recycled, it didn't really do much. But having 4, he was like, oh shit, this rules. Because he'd also get stronger with more negative energy flowing through him. And if Alpheus didn't even notice if it was returned or not, Barbatos figured, why should I? He won't miss 5 universes worth of energy. I mean, but 5 turned to 10, which turned to 20, which turned to 100, and so on and so on. And he began hoarding all of this dark energy, giving him immense power. Now, Alpheus fully trusted his cute little buddy, fully. Barbatos has one job, and it's something that Alpheus can't do since he's constantly creating. And Barbatos does it in a cool way, like no reason to think Barbatos would really do anything malicious. But Barbatos was indeed corrupted. And now kind of infinitely more powerful than before. Like having 100 full-sized turkeys and a dog who you trust. And when you turn to look at the dog and he's twice the size as before, but don't really want to count the turkeys. And you're like, wait a minute, is something different? And the dog's like, no. You're like, oh, okay, cool. And you just keep going about your business. But he keeps getting bigger and bigger. But if Barbatos grew, like, getting all these planets, he grew so strong. And in fact, he grew so strong that he was even stronger than Alpheus, the World Forger himself. Because he kind of had, like, super loose rules, where there wasn't, like, a cap to his power. It was just like he could keep doing it and get unlimited power, pretty much. And it was finally time to go through with his plan, because as Barbatos got more strong, and he was seeing all these worlds, and they'd end, and he got to kind of see what was happening in these worlds before they would end, and that would kind of get the gears turning in his head. It's like, well, why would I, if I just need negative energy, why do I need Alpheus to be trying to make good worlds when I could just have him make really bad worlds? And they would create a lot of negative energy, and I'd get even stronger, even faster. Because if a world was, stable enough and it would float up to the thing, but then it wasn't, there was like at capacity, he wouldn't really get too much energy out of it. So it was like, if I could make this like crazy, like terrible world, I would get so much power from it, and it would be so much more worth it. So he decides to create a plan, and it was time for the first phase of his plan. And he just like energy-wise unalives Alpheus. Like truly unalives him, because we don't really know what he did. He didn't like kill him, and he didn't, make him kill himself, but he just like kind of disappears. Like no one really knows what happens to him. And they found him in his cell, and Barbatos was like, no, I reviewed the footage and nobody else was around him at all that night. And they just never checked the footage again. But so, Alpheus must have killed himself. And with the first part of his plan complete and the forge under his control now, phase 2 could begin, creating a permanent, stable realm within the dark multiverse that he could rule forever. Because he was sick of playing Rust, where all the worlds he could rule would server wipe every 2 weeks, and he wanted to play like Minecraft instead. And luckily, because of his closeness to Alpheus, he watched the process of creation all the time. He realized that if universes were being created with healthy plants, like aka positive energy, that would then die in the toxic soil that is the dark multiverse, he just needed to go against the norm and cultivate toxic plants that could thrive in the toxic soil, instead of trying to force these healthy plants to try to survive in toxic soil. And he began intentionally forging universes built for darkness, despair, and corruption, pushing the boundaries on what is monstrous, turning all of them into nightmare universes. And rather than consuming them right away, he would just let them kind of ride out, to see their full nightmare potential. And once he like hit a certain point with that, that started phase 3, assembling the army. So with all these nightmare universes, he wanted beings for himself that he could rule over and act as his like generals for his army. And being the Bat God landed on Batman and began creating monstrous nightmare versions of Batman that he would kind of save from these collapsing universes to like sit and wait, being like, don't worry, I'll bring down like a permanent universe for all of you. But the plan wasn't just a sit and wait kind of deal, because the World Forge existed kind of outside of the positive matter universe and dark multiverse, and he had some form of access to like each of them. I mean, definitely more so the dark multiverse, since that's where he's from. But he could he just had like a key card to go and see the boss at the World Forge. And that World Forge had like a window to the positive matter multiverse. So using his limited access through the eons, I mean, we're talking a ton of time, he began quietly influencing Earth Zero in the positive matter multiverse, specifically where the template Batman lived. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm trying to make it make sense, you know? I'm doing my best. So, because you might be wondering, how could Barbatos be watching Batman? No, he wants to use Batman as his template, while also having the foresight to influence these ancient tribes of where Batman is from, but in the past. And so the timeline gets kind of muddy. But in the early episodes this season, I had mentioned a 10-year time displacement. And generally this was from Dr. Manhattan fucking with time. But in Batman's case, he was fighting with Darkseid, of all people at the time. And he ends up killing Darkseid. But just as Darkseid hits Batman with his ultimate weapon, the Omega Sanction, which would force people into an endless cycle of death and resurrection, to live out countless progressively worse lives where each life ends in a different terrible way, to be reborn again into a different agonizing existence. And these existences existed kind of outside of time, or at least would send Batman back and forth through time at will, while also accounting for the 10-year Earth Zero time displacement for him specifically. I mean, everyone else on Earth Zero just assumed Batman died. And as Barbatos also exists outside of time, but as an observer, he watched Batman overcome this ultimate weapon and decided that he was the ultimate vessel, as well as a route to Prime Earth. I mean, if Batman could exist outside of time where Barbatos was, why couldn't Barbatos exist in Earth Zero? I mean, that makes sense. So Barbatos interjected himself during Batman's horrible journey and gave him a metaphysical mark, just kind of infecting him with elements only found in the dark multiverse to plant the seeds of a dark multiverse activator. So if a conduit to the dark multiverse was created, it could be powered. Since he can't necessarily bring things from the dark multiverse to the positive matter multiverse, but he can infect things and send Batman home with something, which is all he really needed. It was just he gave him the right battery to power the portal. And was his kind of Barbatos' best route. Since Barbatos views time differently, he's been able to infect things on Prime Earth for eons, influencing ancient tribes with whispers and rituals. Because he can't like super really affect things, but he can just like taint stuff. And these ancient tribes eventually turned into the Bat tribe, as Barbatos would often appear to them as a bat god that he was. And this tribe through the years would eventually evolve into the Court of Owls. Another kind of fun retcon that was added in because of, like, they kind of added this in because there was like a long-standing bat demon in Gotham. Like there was like lore and like kind of anything that was Batman related. They would always like the criminals would talk about like a bat demon that they saw, and it was just kind of assumed that it was people afraid of Batman, you know. But it was always kind of confusing because unless they were like schizophrenic, they'd be able to see he's like a guy in a costume and not a bat demon. And it was eventually explained that Barbatos was actually the demon that people had been seeing. Not, I mean, it's not really relevant to anything that for this, but like neat because it's like it's a story back in the 90s, and the idea of Barbatos is like brand new in 2017. So it's just like any time that they just kind of like retconned that into where in like any old show or comic or something where the guy would be like, oh my god, there was a bat demon in the alley. It wasn't actually Batman. But anyways, he started leading the Court of Owls through generations, positioning them to like fully serve as his cult. And they had like no doubt. He would lead them to like ancient metals, specifically like the ninth metal, which originated from the World Forge itself during the creation of the universe. But it would likely probably never be discovered naturally because this metal is imbued with like reality warping properties like flight and breaking physical laws, anti-gravity and stuff like that. And so it was kind of buried pretty deep in the planet, and with the intention of it not being discovered. But it made up like the basic building blocks of Earth. So it just like had to be included. But with Barbatos leading them to these places, he was like, hey, you'll find this really fancy metal in this spot. And they were like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And they would go, and sure enough, there was super fancy ancient metal there that they've never seen before. But what Barbatos didn't tell them is that he had strategically placed this ninth metal like around Earth Zero in a way that the court could find them. So, I mean, you normally wouldn't ever find them, and he kind of put them exactly where they would. He also didn't tell them that he corrupted these metal deposits with dark energy, which was like one of the few things he could actually do to interact with the positive matter multiverse instead of like whisper and yap. So Barbatos was busy setting up these dark multiverse horcruxes around Earth Zero and guiding the court to gather them all. And surprise, surprise, they were all exactly where their god said they would be. So the court is like fully on board. Like, yep, he's the god. Like, what more proof do you need? Now, if you're like me, I was like, but if they were so locked in on worshiping their bat god, why would they call themselves the Court of Owls? And we actually learned why. Because Barbatos informed the court of the eventual ritual of their ultimate enemy, the false god Batman. And with owls being the predator of bats, they made it their mission to guide Batman into this fate, where they would like ultimately get rid of their like false god, ultimate enemy, and bring their god to their Earth in like a second coming of Barbatos. So, I mean, well, Barbatos didn't really tell him exactly what was happening. He didn't like give him the full details. He was just like, once you gather my 5 medals, get Batman around all 5, and the gate will open, and I'll join you all where you'll rule the multiverse, and everyone will be happy, and you'll like make your god happy, and it's the only afterlife you can get, and all these promises. At the same time, Barbatos knew that Batman was the ultimate detective, so he would sprinkle little clues and ancient symbols that he knew Batman would find and wouldn't be able to help himself and like need to investigate it, which would inevitably tie both him and the court together on the hunt for the same 5 medals. But we're also getting ahead of ourselves a bit. Let's roll it back and explore this army that Barbatos has planned. Namely his lieutenants he amassed during his eons of planning. The first one... Oh, well, would you look at that? It looks like we're out of time for this episode, sports fans. Tune in next week, where I cover the 7 Dark Knights, as well as what happens with our little guy, Barbatos. Bye-bye.
Hey, baby, love the way you move. Won't you come by, please? Let me do the do. Come home. I'ma beat the cat. Then Peter came by, cause they heard your ass. Hey, baby, can't believe it's you that I can't live without. Let me do the do. Come home. Only been a day. Really want them thighs wrapped around my face. That coochie Uber doesn't need a lift. Will you marry me? Baby, I won't plead the fifth. Know that you're my first and last, my Ricky Bobby. Drinking sake on Mount Fuji Umai Punani. Come and put that Minnie Mouse on my Mickey Mouth. Won't put my queen under pressure, talking north to south. I don't want you, baby, that's because I need you. Anything you need, I can get, I will please you. Ooh, a whole new world, cause you let Aladdin. You want rings, look up, baby, I got you Saturn. Only time I lie is when we're on the beach together. You see the pattern, dripped out in our silk satin. All this green on me, come and taste the limelight. Make you my centerpiece, show you up cause the time's right. Feeling freaky, baby, we can always switch it up. Running around, keep it in bounds, make all the calls, living the cut. Hey, baby, love the way you move. Won't you come by, please? Let me do the do. Come home. I'ma beat the cat. Then Peter came by cause they heard your ass. Hey, baby, can't believe it's you